Good afternoon and good morning to our Pacific Coast. Welcome to CFO Future Focus, a panel discussion brought to you by the Controllers Council. My name is Neil Brown, Executive Director of the Controllers Council. And before we get started, just a few housekeeping items. After the panel discussion, we'll have an audience Q&A. So attendees, please submit your questions via the GoToWebinar control panel, and we'll get to as many as possible in the hour. Now, in answer to a frequent question, you'll receive a link to this webcast via email in the next 24 hours, so no need to take notes. So before I introduce our panelists, allow me to share some background on our webinar sponsor, Oracle NetSuite, a cloud-based business management platform used by more than 28,000 organizations around the globe. NetSuite seamlessly integrates financial planning, AR, AP, RevRec, tax management, and other core accounting functions with real-time financial visibility to improve financial performance. To learn more, please visit netsuite.com to request a free product tour. And with that, it's my pleasure to introduce Glenn Hopper, who is CFO of Sandline Global and author of a new book, Deep Finance, Corporate Finance in the Information Age. Glenn is a serial CFO, and I mean that in a good way, earning a graduate certificate in business analytics from Harvard University and an MBA from Regis University. He's a member of American Mensa, so he may be the smartest CFO that I know. And from one of my favorite cities as well, Nashville. And also Ranga Bodla, VP of Industry Marketing at Oracle NetSuite. Ranga has 20 years of software technology experience, and prior to Oracle NetSuite, ran SAP Governance, Risk, and Compliance Solutions. He has a BS in engineering from Trinity University in San Antonio, another favorite city of mine where my daughter and new grandson live. With that, gentlemen, the dream team, welcome.
Neil, thanks for having us.
Neil, same. Thanks for having us, and it's always a pleasure. Glenn and I have gotten to know each other over the last few months, and it's a pleasure to be here. You'll have to excuse. I think both of us decided we're going to be more cleanly shaven than our headshots would indicate. But you know that shouldn't change your opinion on the conversation.
Excellent. Well, thank you for giving us that warning. So we have some moderator questions, and again, audience, please use the Q&A, or please use the control panel to ask questions that will answer in Q&A. So let's start out with one for Glenn. There's a lot of talk about how the CFO role is different now, more than it's ever been. How has the CFO role changed in recent years?
Good question. I think the CFO role, if you think back historically, the CFO gets nicknames like the CFO, and there's the idea that just the CFO is the guy or gal who is just going to tell you, no, we don't have budget for this, and they're going to be kind of the historical report card and just tell you how the company did in the past, and not much in the way of strategy. I think, and I'll go back to maybe Enron and Sarbanes-Oxley, and I think that something happened when post-Enron and Sarbanes-Oxley, where the CFO started to become this, I'll say the grown-up in the room. You know, you can have these eccentric CEOs, you know, hoodie-wearing startup guys, or the WeWork guy running around barefoot, but the CFO doesn't have that luxury. The CFO has to be able to talk to investors, clients, the board, you name it. And I think that the shift, kind of bringing the CFO out of the background into the analyst calls and giving them a louder voice, started to change the role of the CFO and make them more strategic. At the same time, I think if you look at technology that changed, going back with our sponsor and Ranga's company, looking at NetSuite, the late 90s being a cloud-based accounting platform and ERP, it started to shift what you could do with accounting, and the technology has just grown from there. So I think with new tools, new exposure, new ESG kind of components in place, the CFO started to take on more and more. And I say all the time, the CFO today isn't being asked to do more with less. We're actually being asked to do more, but with more tools than we've ever had. And I think that you're seeing now more real-time information as more and more companies, even smaller companies, moving to a more of a real-time close or a shorter close period. It's you become much more in the moment, not just looking back and being asked to be involved in strategy for the company.
I'll just add to what you said, Glenn. I was going to make the joke that you were saying, I'm not sure I could say this, but you're in a safe space. This is the Controllers Council. These are all finance people. They know exactly what you're talking about, Glenn. So it's okay. But it's not a joke. It's true. I think what you're describing is accurate, right? And whether or not you call it the grown up in the room or that strategic advisor, I think both are true and accurate. And what we've seen and we've seen this with our customers, we've seen this with the companies we talk about. I would say that this last decade, it feels like there's been that constant. Okay, the CFO's role is evolving, the CFO's role is changing, and I think it really came into focus, particularly the last 2 years. The last 2 years, it was a confluence of factors that I think really accelerated this notion of the CFO being that strategic advisor, being the steady hand in organizations. And I think, Glenn, you're spot on. One, CFOs aren't necessarily being asked to do more with less. I mean, I think one thing CFOs used to be that they were the cobbler's children. I don't think that's the case anymore. I mean, they are making decisions not only about the broader company's technology choices, but they're also making choices about their own technology. Number two, they're viewed by the C-suite and by the board to not just keep the lights on, but how do we balance the strategic and the tactical? They're looking to the CFO to help keep things in perspective. Number three, the CFO is really being viewed as the person to help advise. Okay, we've got to make some hard decisions. Are we going to take advantage of these new stimulus programs? Are we going to go out for outside funding? Are we going to take venture money? Are we going to take debt? Are we going to go and do international expansion? I mean, these are all questions that the CFO has a pulse on now and are being asked to do these things, based on all the information that they have. So I think that's what's really has changed, and it's really accelerated in the last 2 years. I think came into focus, particularly with the pandemic and everything that exposed, and now with just everything else that companies and organizations are dealing with, the CFO is really viewed as the person to kind of focus and understand how do we make decisions, in that context.